Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. Happy Monday to everybody. Hope you had a fantastic weekend as we get back into the swing of things to begin the week, as we start off with a topic that I think is very interesting to many Bucs fans. What piece are the Bucs missing this year? We know they're a competitive team. They've made the playoffs several years in a row, but what is keeping them from being a true blue, or I guess red in this situation, Super Bowl contender? We're going to break that down a little bit more on today's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague, the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com. Returning back to the show is Scott Reynolds. Scott, great to be with you this afternoon. How is everything?
Good, man. It's great to be back. I had some personal time last week to attend some of my father's affairs up in D.C. You know, he passed away last December, and so with the off season being what it was, I had to take some time to go up there and tend to some of that, and got a little bit of a vacation in towards the tail end of the week at St. Simon's Island up there in Georgia, which is a great coastal town. Highly recommend it. Had a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed the vacation part of it, for sure. But I know a lot of Bucs fans and Pewter people are very happy to have you back on the show, as always. And we will have roll call today coming up at 4:20. Sometimes we're a little fashionably late. We'll see how the conversation goes. But so we're going to talk about what pieces the Bucs are missing. Feel free in the chat as well. Of course, super chats get first right of refusal with any opinions or questions or anything like that. If you think a specific position needs to be filled, or maybe a specific player as well, I think we're both in agreement, Scott. This team is closer to a Super Bowl than being further than the number one overall pick. I think you've kind of said that on the show before. This is a good team, but I don't think many people would put them as a great team just yet, because of, a couple flaws on this team, and nobody's perfect. Not even the Kansas City Chiefs, who have won the last two Super Bowls and, three Super Bowls in recent time, can always improve their team. So I think for the Bucs, the number one thing that stands out to me is really the trenches when it comes to the Buccaneers. Whether it's the offensive side or the defensive side, there's just like a little bit of tweaking that I think needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of throw the Bucs in that category with like the 49ers and the Lions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. You look at Tampa Bay, they did invest a lot of resources in the trenches, especially along the offensive line, right? They started off with the first-round pick, Graham Barton, and then also added a couple of veteran players in Sua Opeta, who was taking, I think, the first string reps at left guard, and then Ben Bredesen. And really, I think it's going to come down to, did the Buccaneers do enough at the guard position to really address that and have an upgrade over Matt Filer and Aaron Stinney last year? And so I do believe that Graham Barton's going to be the starter this year at center. I think that they've been pushing for that. All indications are that he had a very good offseason in terms of grasping the mental side of it. He's an incredibly smart guy. Went to Duke, right? I mean, even Baker Mayfield kind of quipped. He's like, he picked this pretty well. These guys at Duke are pretty smart. In the physicality part, I mean, Matt, when you look at the RAS score, he is the most athletic center to come out of the draft since 1987, which is the first year that Kent Lee Platt started accumulating all of these data points from an athletic standpoint. So to me, he's strong enough. He's going to be athletic enough. It's just, can he marry the intelligence part of it with the application part of it? Meaning, it's one thing to know it. It's another thing to want to do it. And when, and not have that hesitation, not have that split second of doubt or worry or wait a minute, right? It's if he can get this stuff and really make it stick. And the interesting thing that we did see during the OTAs, Matt, and I don't know if it's the Bucs hedging their bets a little bit, or whatnot. But during the OTAs, we saw Graham Barton and Robert Hainsey really kind of taking almost an equal amount of snaps. They had your third string center in there too, getting those reps almost like a third string quarterback would. But it kind of reminded me a little bit of last year's Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield, where both the quarterbacks really got those snaps where typically, Matt, when you've got a starting quarterback, they're going to get, 60% of the snaps, maybe 70% of the snaps. And then, if it's 60, then your backup gets 30 and then the third string gets 10, right? That's kind of how it goes. So you're getting, 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio over the backups from that starter. And so I just wonder if they really want Graham Barton to be the guy. I think they need to accelerate those snaps and just say, hey, listen, Robert, we appreciate what you've done. We know you're in a contract year, but we want this guy to be the center. And in order to help facilitate that, we need to give him as many reps as possible. But it could be a situation, Matt, where they are saying, we like Robert Hainsey. He is in a contract year. We're going to hedge our bets. We have to get Robert prepared in this new offense, even though he's had a year with Baker Mayfield, but it's a new offense. So we need to get him going just in case Graham Barton falters, right?
Oh, very much so. And it is interesting comparing the Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask situation last year, because it's still building chemistry just in a very, very different way. Like for Baker and Kyle Trask last year, yes, it's the timing of the offense, but more importantly, it's the timing of the wide receivers running their routes. It's hitting the running back out of the backfield, when to decide to just tuck it and run on a certain play. And you have to get the offensive line calls correctly as well and have that chemistry with your center. Now, for Graham Barton and Robert Hainsey, you're at least, like, it doesn't really matter for the offensive line. It does to a degree, but they don't need to know like what type of route Mike Evans is running on a specific play. Like, they just have to worry about, okay, I got Cody Mount next to me and Petta or Bredesen. Yeah, just protections and things of that nature. So I think they can get away a little bit more with dispersing the overall playing time and practice reps a little bit more at center than at quarterback, which, as we all know, is the most important position in the game of football. Where it does become interesting, and I just got to say for Graham Barton, I really am impressed with just how self-aware he is coming into the league. And I think self-awareness is big in football, really in sports as well, knowing like what you can do, what you can't do, not buying into your own hype at all. For example, there's been a lot of comparisons of Graham Barton to Ali Marpet. There's been even Jason Light kind of threw Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke into the mix, saying that he sees a little bit of that with Graham Barton as well. And Graham Barton was like, and this is right after the draft, he said, I've never taken a snap in the NFL. So I appreciate those kind words, but I have to go and I have to prove it. And I have to do all these different things. And then kind of fast forward when we spoke to him recently at Bucs minicamp, which still feels like it was yesterday, even though it was like 2 weeks ago now. And just hearing him talk about like the most beneficial thing for me at this moment is making mistakes, understanding what I can do and what I can't do. And to bring this back to Baker and Kyle Trask, the mistakes are on a different level, because last year, any single time Baker Mayfield threw an interception, it was like, oh my God, Baker, turnover prone in Cleveland. This is what he's bringing to Tampa Bay. But then you kind of learn like, okay, Baker wouldn't do that in a regular season game. He's trying it out now to see, okay, well, when Mike does this go route, I can throw it at this time, versus if Chris Godwin does a slant, I can throw it in this type of situation. So yeah, it is kind of a insurance / safe bet with having Robert Hainsey get some reps. I do agree with you. I think kind of just throwing Graham Barton to the Wolves seems like the better move immediately, because I understand it's a new. Yeah, just go all in, because Graham Barton seems like a guy that's ready for that challenge. Where I don't know if every single rookie or every single player on the Bucs would be willing to kind of. I mean, we've heard other players right now say, my head is spinning from this offense. We heard Sterling Shepard say it, and granted, he's been there for like 5 days. And we heard, Bucky Irving kind of mentioned it too, and he's a rookie. But, Graham Barton has really just embraced the role of being a first-round pick. It doesn't seem too big, and he is a pretty big guy in of itself. So just the attitude, the mentality, knowing that he has to have a leadership role as a center. You're making all the calls, but also understanding I'm the rookie in the room playing with Tristan Wirfs and, all these linemen that have been here for a while. It's just, sometimes when you get a new pair of shoes, it takes a while to like really break it in and then you feel comfortable. Grant Barton, it just feels comfortable right away.
I agree.
And that's a big credit to him.
And you know what? He won the press conference, right? I mean, he said all the right things. Like you say, he's very humble, very self-aware. Then he came in and spoke with us, and just the maturity, the professionalism that this guy had from day one, right? This is after he got drafted. Now he's had, the rookie minicamp. He's had all of these practices to dive into this offense, to be prepared. He has been a guy that has been prepared and over prepared dating back to his high school days. That was his MO. That's why he was able to start at Duke as a freshman, a true freshman in a COVID year. So again, this is a guy that's been there and done that. I do think he is ready for this moment. And if I'm the Buccaneers, I go all in. So to me, the biggest concern still remains that left guard position. And I understand that, there was some news today on Pro Football Talk about Connor, Williams, the center for the Miami Dolphins, who, had a phenomenal year last year for Miami. He started off as a guard with the Cowboys and then has showed he is just as good, if not better, as a center. The problem is late in the season, he tore his ACL against the Titans on Monday night. That was in December, I think December 11th. And he didn't even really take part in free agency. Didn't even really show an interest in signing with teams because of the injury that he sustained. And we saw Chris Godwin come back right from a late season ACL and play. He wasn't the same Chris Godwin per se, but the fact that Connor Williams opted out of free agency, especially when those big deals fly off the shelves in the first, week or so of free agency, leads me to believe that this is a serious injury. And he's even gone on record saying that, I'm not sure if I could have played the 2024 season. It's sounding now, and I think this is coming from his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, which, guess what? Surprise, surprise. He wants to get a big payday for his client and then the commission for himself. So I think he's pushing Connor Williams to go out there and try to get a deal. The problem is most teams at this point, they've spent their big time money, right? And if you're looking for a 1-year prove it deal, does it make sense for Connor Williams to go out there this year and sign a really, really small, like $2 million 1-year prove it deal when you were on the verge of cashing in with a massive deal in free agency because you're one of the highest PFF graded centers coming out there, run and pass?
Yeah.
Or is it better to sit out this year, get completely healthy, and then go in there and, put on a little off-season clinic before free agency and then just cash in on that huge deal? Because, and I say this, the Godwin thing is one thing. We saw Chris come back from that ACL injury. This is an ACL injury, and it's different from what Ryan Jensen had, but Jensen's knee injury was much more significant. And also as a lineman, too, you've got to push people with that knee, not just run and cut like a wide receiver. And so I think the Buccaneers are probably a little gun-shy about centers with knee injuries, and I don't think that they're interested in him. I know that that's kind of it's a big name out there. You look at the PFF grades and you think, okay, well, maybe he plays guard or because they already have Graham Barton. I just don't think that this is a situation they want to touch right now. I would rather have a more of a sure known healthy Sua Opeta and Ben Bredesen going at it than rolling the dice on a Connor Williams. Because again, the thing too is okay, let's say he is healthy and he does, hit it out of the park. Okay, that's great. But then you're going to want to keep him next year. And do you put him in center and move, Graham Barton there? We're getting a little down the road here, but I just don't see the team being interested in another center right now that probably is going to command big money and coming off of a knee injury like that.
Yeah, you really have to look at the risk reward factor more for Williams than the Bucs on their side of it, because it in a way it reminds me a little bit, at different positions. But when Odell Beckham was coming back from an injury, and he essentially missed the whole season after tearing his ACL when he won the Super Bowl with the Rams. And then there was a little bit of an Odell Beckham sweepstakes. And, Odell maybe could have signed the year before, but wasn't totally 100%. For Connor Williams, I think you hit the nail on the head. Why come back now when you're not 100% and you'll get a much smaller contract? If you just waited out the whole time, I mean, Josh Capel had a great article about why it would help the Buccaneers if they signed Connor Williams.
But that's assuming he would be healthy.
Yes. Yeah. And there's more than one team that would want the services of Connor Williams right now. So he's got hype on him at the moment. If he doesn't play at all and he just comes out and says, I want to make sure I'm 100% and fully rehab my injury and be good to go for the 2025 season, sometimes with players, when they're a free agent, they kind of get forgotten about the next season. But I think in Williams' case, it would still be the same amount of hype the next year when you have a team that has issues on the offensive line and say, hey, here's a clear-cut solution right here. Yes. You could probably get him for a little less money than maybe a mega contract if he was fully healthy after his season was done with Miami if he didn't get hurt. If he goes and plays right now and he doesn't play up to his capabilities, it might be the end of his career, or at least not a situation where for his value, where next season, if he just sits out and waits, he may have his choice of 3 or 4 teams and say, okay, well, that team just won their division. That team just made it to the NFC and AFC championship game. I'd rather go there, even if it's for less money, because I'm going to be on a competitive team. And the history with the Bucs and injuries to the offensive line, it makes a lot of sense. If Williams says, I'll play for the Bucs right now, I think I would still go after it. Maybe you let him kind of rehab a little bit and comes in the middle of the season. I know it's not like a perfect world type of situation, but I think for Williams, it's probably best to sit out because it's not like Le'Veon Bell negotiating a new contract and he misses the whole season and then running backs, the game kind of passes you by. Offensive linemen, we kind of see it all the time. They can play much, much later into their careers and still be serviceable if they have the right situation.
You're right. And the last thing I'll say, because we got roll call coming up here at 420, is the fact that when you look at him, if he were to come to Tampa and be healthy, like I'm all for it, because especially if he wants to play here for a cheap 1-year prove-it deal. But I think at this point in time, I believe Opeta and Bredesen are going to be an upgrade over Filer and Stinney. One of those guys, whoever emerges as the guy, I just have a feeling that it's going to be a little bit better at left guard. Not a lot better necessarily, but a little bit better. Is that going to be enough? We'll see. That still might be the piece that is holding this team back. But the one thing we're not going to do here on this Monday at 420, which, as you all know, is a very fun time on the Pewter Report podcast, we are not going to hold back from the fact that we're about to do the little thing called roll call.
Roll call. That's right, Scott. We want to know where you at, Pewter people. We do this on 420 on every single Monday show. If you're new to the show, we do this weekly where, we just love interacting with the fans and we try to do it as much as we can. And one way we do that is with roll call. So I'm going to talk about the running backs today with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, talk about a Buccaneers topic. And in the meantime, if you want to put in the chat the location where you are watching from, because we have awesome fans all over the globe, really. We love our fans in Tampa, but we also have awesome fans across the United States and international as well. So I'm going to start talking about Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. And Scott, feel free to start putting the comments on the screen whenever you're ready.
You got it, man.
So I want to start with with Rachaad White because he was in the news lately. Rachaad White really takes advantage of, in the offseason. He's been on the Pewter Report podcast a couple times now. He likes to get his face out there, doing interviews and doing different YouTube videos and things like that. So I think that's cool to see. I think it's great for players to balance, obviously, working for the season, but also show their personality as well to a degree. It certainly helps, in their post-career too. You look at someone like Gerald McCoy, who has a nice, analyst job now. But anyway, Rachaad White was on the Jim Rome show recently and was talking to him about actually a former teammate of his, Jaden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, who was teammates one time long ago with Rachaad White back at Arizona State. In 2021, the Arizona State team was absolutely stacked. You had Jaden Daniels at quarterback, at least on offense. Daniels at quarterback, Rachaad White as your starting running back. You had Ricky Pearsall, who got drafted this year. And you had Johnny Wilson, the Florida State wide receiver, on that team. So I don't know how Arizona State dropped the ball with, having all of that talent. But,
Edwards.
Herm Edwards. But what a squad. But anyway, so Rachaad White still has a great relationship with Jaden Daniels. He said they talk almost every single day, but every single week. And of course, with the Bucs playing the Commanders, the first game of the season, he kind of got asked about, what's that going to be like playing against Jaden Daniels, in his first game to start the season between the two of you? And he said, it's crazy. Our first game, I tell him we got to put belt to ass on their team, but that's just how it goes. It's just good competition. Then he goes on to say it's great competition for him to be the first game of his career, the first game of my third year of the new year. We are very excited about it over here in Tampa. I can't ask for no better. So I tell him now, at the time, I got to be like, put that belt to ass once again. He says it's cool though. So I love the personality from Rachaad White, but to kind of tie it all together, Rachaad White is going to be really important for Bucky Irving as well, because Rachaad was on the other side of it coming in with Leonard Fournette on this team. And, it was Leonard Fournette's backfield. And Fournette was way more of a veteran at the time than when Rachaad White is now the veteran running the running back room for the Bucs. But he's already come out and had a great positive attitude with Bucky Irving, saying we're going to be a great 1-2 punch. He really likes what he's seen from him. And I think if the Bucs want to have an improvement in the run game, have that cohesive unit, Bucky Irving they've been so complimentary of each other, with Bucky saying he's leaned on Chase Edmonds and Rachaad White. Rachaad obviously had a lot of great things to say about Bucky Irving. And the cool thing is, I think there's going to be plenty of room to eat for both of these running backs. I truly think the Bucs can, obviously it's not going to be identical, but a couple of years ago, when the Cowboys kind of had the Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard system, where they had two running backs that both just went after it. You look at the Detroit Lions now, where they have a couple of running backs. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs was the one that was drafted last year. It's going to take a lot for the Bucs to improve this running game. It's not just on Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. The offensive line has to play a role. Obviously, Liam Cohen has to get it together. But I really like the outlook of this running back room for what it can be if the running game figures itself out. I think the Bucs potentially could have a Pro Bowl running back this year with Rachaad White, and that fun 1-2 punch like Rachaad was talking about with him and Bucky Irving. I think everybody is going to be able to get their stats going, but also make sure that the offense is going to be better. So I love the attitude and the personality that White brings to this team, but overall what it means for the running game and the running backs there.
Yeah, well said, Matt. The interesting thing, too, is we saw Dave Canales last year really want to commit to the running game. The problem is you can't commit to something that's not working, right? And there were plenty of games where it didn't work. So it has to work. And I think that what we've heard about Liam Cohen's offense, especially as it pertains to the running game, and the ability to check out of plays that are DOA, dead on arrival, right? Where Baker Mayfield walks up line of scrimmage, they've got a run called, and if last year they were in double tight end set, they might have been running into a defensive front that was just not favorable at all, right? And then it's like you run that play, you get tackled for a loss, you get no gain, you get maybe a 1 yard gain. Now you're 2nd and 9, right? So in order for a team to truly be committed to the running game, it has to work. You got to continue to feed the ball carriers, and you have to be able to do that because you're picking up first downs. And so I think that this running scheme with the diversity of play calls, and that's one thing Liam Cohen said too, Matt. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a shot at Dave Canales, but it was just telling the truth. It was like
he was just answering the question.
Yeah, they didn't have enough running plays, right? And I mean some of that's on Harold Goodwin, the run game coordinator, who's now the run game coordinator and offensive line coach in Carolina with Dave Canales. So I think that's something that is going to help this run game is the scheme, right? And if you're having success running the ball, then you're going to have more carries, and more carries means more workload for Rachaad White. But hold on now, you got Bucky Irving, so you don't necessarily have to work Rachaad White more. Maybe you can even work him a little bit less, but because the running game in theory is working better and becoming more efficient in terms of the yards per carry average going up, then Rachaad White can have a more productive year, maybe with a fewer carries, but averaging more yards per carry and topping 1,000 yards, and having Bucky Irving get maybe 400 by himself or 500 or whatever. So I agree, Matt. I think this running game has the makings to be good, because I do like Rachaad White as a runner. I do like Bucky Irving as a runner, but I like this Liam Cohen scheme fit too. I think it fits what Tampa Bay really wants to do offensively.
I fully agree. And it's funny looking at the trajectory of Rachaad White's career, because when he was a rookie, a lot of us are saying, why isn't Rachaad White in the game more? Like, why isn't it a little more mixed with Leonard Fournette? And then, Fournette ended up getting injured, and Rachaad had the big game in Germany against the Seahawks, live and in front of Dave Canales. And then last year, while Rachaad White was very productive, obviously more in the receiving game, and we know what he did as an all-purpose back, but I think there were times as well where it was, hey, Rashaad's playing too much, not because we don't want him in there because he's still a very good player, but you see how it works with running backs. You play too much, you get hit a ton, and you're finished by the end of the season. And to Rashaad's credit, he took every single bump and
started all 19 games.
Took a lot. But to ask Rachaad White to do that for the next 2 seasons every single time, and the Bucs plan on making a big run, so 19, 20 games, I almost felt at times occasionally Chase Edmonds would have a nice little burst, and it was great to see, but he'd only get like 3 rushing attempts per game.
Right.
You can't really have too much of an impact in that situation. If Bucky Irving could just get like 10 a game, I think that will make all the difference for the offense.
I agree, Matt. You mentioned Rachaad White's big game over in Germany, and I'd be remiss if we didn't call out some of our amazing Pewter people who showed up for today's roll call at 4:20. We're going to start things off with Tobias Stark, who's a longtime contributor from Munich, Bavaria, Germany. Let's get rolling. RW1 is killing. So, yes, or he said King. King killing, same thing. He's doing really well, and I think he's going to do even better with that complimentary 1-2 punch that Bucky Irving's going to bring. So we appreciate Tobias for giving us a roll call shout out today. And then I kind of trekked. I started up in the Washington D.C. area, and where I was born. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia, and took care of some of my dad's affairs up there. And then I went down and saw some family. But so we had a couple people that almost kind of followed my journey here last week.
Yeah, right.
To me and them. Jack Carrico here from Washington, D.C. And also we've got Mr. D Block 97 currently in D.C. So appreciate people from our nation's capital there. Had a great chance to go see the Lincoln Memorial, Washington Memorial, and the World War II Memorial while I was there. And then I made my way down to North Carolina, Cleveland, North Carolina, where I have some family. But we have a couple people here checking in. Jeff the Champ from New Bern, North Carolina, and Theodore Milton from Wilmington, North Carolina. So we appreciate them very much. And then I made my way down to Georgia, and I was at St. Simon's Island last week. And I'm not sure where Ellenwood, Georgia is, but my daughter's name is Ellen. Call her Ellie. Her birthday was yesterday, June 23rd. So a little shout out.
Oh, happy birthday
to Ellie. And also my wife, Ashley, shared the same birthday, June 23rd.
Oh, no kidding. Wow, that's crazy.
So just kind of tying in all these different locations here. And then the funny thing is we crossed this creek yesterday, Matt, up in the north end of Florida, kind of by Jacksonville, where you and I are going to be covering the Bucs Jaguars joint practices in training camp, and also that game a couple of days later. But we ran across a bridge over a body of water called Alligator Creek. Now, David Milnick is watching from Alligator Point, Florida. And I'm just curious, like, what makes Alligator Creek, that particular creek, Alligator Creek? Because isn't every creek in Florida have alligators pretty much?
Right, yeah. Alligators are all over the state of Florida. Like,
they're
you can
like
find
in every
them.
pond and lake and river and all that stuff.
And in Gainesville.
Yeah, and in Gainesville, exactly. And we'll wrap up with Jay Anitra from Miami, Florida. A couple of Florida people there at the end. So we really appreciate everybody. We know it's summer,
Yes.
a lot of vacations going on. Matt just had one to Italy. I just got back from one. So we know it's that time of year, but we really appreciate you guys tuning in, especially on Mondays for Roll Call. Speaking of participation, the Buccaneers announced today, and we'll get back to our topic here in just a second, but we have a little bit of not so breaking news, but some news that just came out within the last hour. The Bucs are going to be having their training camp open dates. And, it's interesting, Matt, because back in the day, they used to have a lot more open training camp practices when they were really trying to sell season tickets, and interest in the team was kind of at an all-time low during that decade of darkness when they went from Josh Freeman to Mike Glennon to Josh McCown to Jameis Winston. But now that the Buccaneers are high and mighty and they've won some of those NFC South championships 3 in a row, made the playoffs 4 years in a row, well, they've got 9 dates open to the public starting on July 25th, which will be the second practice. Training camp practice will start on July 24th. The players report on the 23rd. And interestingly enough, at least right now, they only have a couple of these dates open to the public. And that means you don't have to be a crew member, which means a ticket holder. You can just be a fan who doesn't have tickets. A couple of those dates, July 25th and August 2nd. And then the crew member dates are July 29th, July 30th. And they also have a night practice, too, for one of those games, or one of those practices, I should say.
Yeah.
That's going to be the indoor facility. All the others are going to be outside at the Advent Health Training Camp facility there. But the interesting thing, Matt, is as it stands right now, the Buccaneers will have 2 joint practices prior to the final preseason game against the Dolphins. And unlike years past, when they've had those joint practices, they've been open to the fans. That's not the case this year. They're going to be closed practices, I guess.
Yeah. Sometimes you're only at the mercy of what the team wants to do and things like that. But
and if you remember, a couple years ago for the joint practices, there were a lot of Dolphins fans. Maybe the Buccaneers don't want that to happen again.
Yeah, it could be the case for sure. I love the joint training camp practices. I love the training camp practices themselves. And I get it. It's super, super hot at that time of the summer. But Bucs fans, you guys bring it for a training camp. It's loud in a great way. I love being up close and personal to hear the fans applaud great plays. We get to watch way more of the Bucs offense then than we do at a regular practice when we only get half an hour and it's kind of more just, calisthenics and special teams and things like that. So I love being out there for training camp. Hopefully we see a lot of Pewter people in the crowd, like Kathy Gillespie, who said, just schedule time off for the 3rd of August for Crew Day. Yahoo! Yeah, please feel free during training camp. If you guys see us, we'll be walking up and down the field, going to, where all the things are getting done. But, please, if you see us, say what up, and we're happy to say hello and have a little chat as well, as practice gets going, because we love the Pewter people, like we said.
We do.
And training camp's fun. We're closing in on a month, which is great.
Yep. And we got a couple more here. We have a couple of stragglers into the Pewter Report podcast. So we'll get you on here. Rochester, New York for Darius Miller. Montclair, New Jersey for Payne Gusto. And just put that one up there. We got Winston-Salem. A lot of North Carolina folks today.
Yeah.
Snippy. Yeah. So we appreciate that. And Michael Sorgel,
maybe something like that. Anyway, Svendborg, Denmark.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Michael. Thank you very much. Sorry we butchered your name. But a lot of great participation today, so greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, it's just a cool way to see so many fans from all over the place. I know if you're in America, if you want to locate something else besides Bucs fans, you can locate Celsius energy drinks, which of course is the official energy drink of pewterreport.com. Check out all their vibe flavors, from the Galaxy to the Astro to the Cosmic. I love the Arctic vibe. Tropical is fantastic as well. There's no sugar. It's gluten-free, non-GMO. It's a great substitute for coffee if you want to get your day rolling that way as well. But like I mentioned, if you need to know where to find a Celsius, go to the Celsius store locator, punch in your address, and it'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Could be a Walmart, a health and fitness store, or might just be your bodega.
Bodega.
Get to hear that bodega again. And once you keep going to your bodega, you know you love Celsius and you want more and you want to buy it in bulk, you can buy it in bulk. Go over to Amazon, click on that subscribe and save, and you can have it sent to your place of residence whenever you want. You're the captain. You're in charge. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast.
Matt, I think one of the, sticking on today's topic here, what piece is missing, right? We know the potential weak spots for this team. Left guard, cornerback, right? Is Zion McCollum enough? Is Jamel Dean enough? Is Bryce Hall, who really got roasted the last practice I saw, is he enough? Is the cornerback position, is that undermanned? But the thing that kind of sticks to me a little bit is the coaching, because typically you don't see teams really go far in the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl without great coaching.
Yes.
It's happened. It can happen, right? But you go back and you look at the fact that when the Buccaneers won their last Super Bowl, Tom Brady, and it was easier for Byron Leftwich to call plays when he had AB and Gronk and Evans and Godwin, right? And everybody was healthy except they lost the right guard, Alex Kappa.
Alex Kappa and Aaron City came in.
Yeah, in that first playoff game. Otherwise, this team was really healthy all the way through, right? And the Buccaneers did the best job of beating COVID in terms of having players available. I think Devin White missed that game. Rojo was a little banged up. I think he pulled a quad in that Washington game, and then it's when playoff Lenny took off. But the coaching, right? 30 points per game in all of those playoff games, and then the Todd Bowles masterpiece in the Super Bowl, right? And we got a little bit of taste of that in that Eagles game, right? We saw Todd Bowles dial it up again, right, with another masterpiece, shutting down the Eagles offense. Granted, didn't have A.J. Brown, but they stopped the tush push. Jalen Hurts was basically ineffective, and Todd Bowles did his job on that side of the ball. The Buccaneers scored 30 points on offense. Bowles' defense even chipped in a safety, thanks to Anthony Nelson, but 30 points per game on the offensive side. So, and we saw that a little earlier in the year, I should say later in the year, but before that playoff game, that 34-20 drubbing of a Packers team that was a playoff team at Green Bay, Baker Mayfield's perfect quarterback rating. So to me, I think that what the piece that could be missing is, I know we feel pretty good about Liam Cohen. We got to be honest. Liam Cohen has yet to call a play in the NFL, especially in Tampa. He called a couple of games back in 2021 with Sean McVay, but Todd Bowles, right? Can he figure out Jared Goff, right? Can he slow down or stop the weapons that San Francisco has on offense, right? So to me, I think that the what might be missing is elevated game plans, elevated in-game management from Bowles, elevated adjustments on both sides of the ball, right? That to me is because I like this roster, Matt. I mean, I'm kind of scratching my head. What piece is missing? Okay, maybe left guard, maybe cornerback a little bit, maybe an edge rusher. I think they're okay. I think one of these guys, Watts, JTS, Nelson, one of these guys is going to merge opposite Diaby, right? Braswell. But to me, is this a good Buccaneer team like it was last year, or do they have the potential for greatness? And I think that we saw in that playoff loss at Detroit, Todd Bowles once again got backhanded a little bit by Jared Goff and the Lions offense, tied in the fourth quarter, and they just could not stop Detroit's offense. And the Buccaneers could not top 30 points again for the win in Detroit. So to me, I think that's still an area of concern. I did see some growth last year from a game management standpoint. I know that Todd Bowles doesn't like to call timeouts in the first half of games towards the end of the season. That actually happened a couple of times. I remember some of your calls for that on Pewter Game Day, Matt. But to me, that is a real big piece here, that you look at the roster, and I like it. It's a better roster. It's deeper, more talented than last year. But the coaching, that's a little bit of an unknown for me.
Deeper is for sure, because when I was thinking about this as well, I was thinking, there's got to be something a little bit more than just this player or that player. Because, outside linebacker, I think for sure can be considered. I even think like defensive tackle, essentially like filling the Logan Hall role if Logan Hall doesn't, pick it up. But I really like where you're going with this, with the coaching, because there's so many different ways to look at it and pick apart why things need to be elevated. Defensively, how many times have we, slammed our head against the wall saying they're playing too soft in coverage? Like, I get they're letting everything underneath, but it's killing the Bucs when they send blitzes. That's something I think we really want to see, especially when Zion McCollum comes on this show and says, I love playing press man and man to man. I want to play that. Well, all right. Well, if Zion's saying that, maybe play to your strengths a little bit. But again, now that you have Jordan Whitehead back and Tyke Smith can play a role, how does Todd Bowles make those adjustments? Where is the biggest change that the Bucs will have on defense, I think is the question, because I don't want to get into the situation. And who knows, maybe Todd Bowles is playing chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. But the Bucs defense just felt so predictable at times last year.
Yes.
And then he goes and did what he did, in that Eagles playoff game.
Right.
And you have to wonder, well, did he do this, and that in week 14 through 16 just to save his best game for, 2 weeks later in the playoffs? But then you look at the Detroit game and you go, all right, well, you're kind of back to square one. Now, offensively, I think really the biggest thing, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit with Liam Cohen, is that there's so many elements of unknown on the offensive side, because you have a new offensive line coach and wide receivers coach, and obviously with Liam Cohen as well. We can predict and we can guess and hypothesize how specific things will look, but we're not in those meetings with the coaches. We're not exactly sure what's being said. I know, like Kevin Carberry, when we asked about him, the notion really was this guy doesn't leave any stone unturned, and he's always talking, and there's always something going on. But the coaching can really help elevate a team, or it can help kind of slow a team down. And I think the past couple of years, it's slowed the Bucs down a little bit, not to a screeching halt by any means. But who knows? These new coaches could really change a lot when it comes to making the Bucs a contender for the Super Bowl.
I really like a lot of these additions. I think Todd Bowles has done a fantastic job. Justin Peele, bringing him in, he's just a better technician when it comes to teaching the art of blocking. He was an NFL tight end. He's been there and done that. Kevin Carberry comes with the experience of working with Liam Cohen from their days in LA, and then Petrucci, the other offensive line coach. Bakucci, sorry. The other offensive line coach, he came over from Kentucky. So there's some carryover there. So I like the fact that Liam Cohen has worked with these guys before on the offensive line. They know what he wants to run. The receivers coach, Brian McClendon, I've heard from everybody in the building is the star of the show. And it's great because you already have Mike and Chris to work with, but it's elevating the play of Trey Palmer, getting him really up to not just being wide receiver 3, Matt, but maybe being wide receiver 2 after Evans or Godwin leaves, right? And it's developing Jalen McMillan and putting him in the same position as well. It's finding, a guy like maybe Cameron Johnson, who's been getting some buzz behind the scenes, undrafted free agent out of tiny Barton College, and Raheem Jarrett, developing him, right, and having a wide receiver depth chart that is pretty sterling, not just top heavy. So you when it comes to the coaches, it's twofold. It's player development. It's getting those players ready to perform on Sunday, but then it's also the in-game adjustments, right? It's the chess match. It's the strategy. That's really where the Buccaneers, in my opinion, that's a little bit of a question mark for me, because as good as Todd Bowles was in that Eagles game, again, we talk about him, getting bullied by Jared Goff a bit, but I mean, that Texans game was awful. I mean, bloody awful.
Yeah.
It's like there was a water main leak in the Bucs defense, and they just couldn't turn off the spigot. It just kept running and running and running, and
Right.
it wasn't going to be stopped. So we did see the Buccaneers make some strides at the end of the season. We talked about that Packers game. We talked about the Eagles game, destroying them at Ray J. And then also, too, the 9-0 shutout when they needed a shutout, when the offense wasn't doing jack squat in Carolina. They got that. But I don't think this Todd Bowles defense, with the talent they have, you mentioned Whitehead coming back. They've added Tyke Smith now. Players like Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Kancey here in year 2. KJ Britton contract year. Levante's back. There's so many pieces here. Zion ready to step up and really, I think, live up to his potential. They cannot afford to have a Houston Texans game on defense again. Like that can't happen. You can't be the reason why you lose the game. And sometimes the defense can play like mediocre, and you can point to this play or that play and say, well, if they would have made this play here or that, they wouldn't have lost. But you can't be the reason why you lose. And that's exactly what they were against Houston. They cannot afford to have that type of debacle again.
Right. The Bucs need to show that their defense can bring it against some of the best offenses in the league. And they will face some of the best offenses in the league. Obviously, rematches against Detroit and San Francisco, but let's not forget about their game against the Chiefs. And obviously, Atlanta figured out the quarterback situation. Baltimore as well during that gauntlet. They played Justin Herbert later in the season. And the Cowboys still have a very good offense despite them not wanting to pay any of their best players. So, the defense is going to get tested this year. I would be very worried if this was last year's defense with the lack of depth that they had, and obviously for everything that you just said. And that's why, you see the 9-0 victory, and that's great. A shutout's a shutout. You can't take that away. But it was also against Carolina. Exactly. I think the Bucs defense needs to make a statement. Doesn't have to necessarily be early. Obviously, everybody would love for it to be against Detroit, but they have to make sure that they show up against those big teams. We could even throw Philadelphia in there because they still got a really good offense, especially with Saquon Barkley there. Bucs defense needs to, Todd Bowles needs to up his game in many ways, not just as a defensive coordinator, but as a head coach. But that defense needs to bring it this year because there's a lot of tough offenses alone that they're going to go against.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure, because it's so close to free agency, if Todd Bowles would have the time or even the inclination necessarily to go on the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise. But you know what? If he does beat Jared Goff in week 2, if he does get some revenge against the 49ers and finally stops that streak, if they win more games than they did last year, advance further in the playoffs, I just think that maybe Todd Bowles deserves a vacation, Matt. And there's not a better vacation you can think of next year when it comes to the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise, of course.
It's a good.
I couldn't do it without Captain right here.
There ain't nothing like this right here. Got me seeing things crystal clear. So high, I can fight them all. It's gonna feel. There's a fire underneath my feet. Got me rolling like a river deep. Let it flow, cause I know in my soul that lift me up.
Listen, guys, I'm going to let you in a little secret, all right? Because my wife's been bugging me. She wants to go on a cruise this summer. We'll see if it's going to happen before camp or not. But women like to go on cruises. They just do. And I like to go on them too. But, I'm not the one who's like, let's go on a cruise. So this is what you do. You say, hey, babe, listen, let's go on a cruise like next off season, like March 7th through 10th. And they're going to have some amazing stops at Key West as well as Bimini, Bahamas. And it just so happens that maybe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be on there too. So we kind of get the best of both worlds, right? That's how you sell the Tampa Bay Buccaneer cruise to your spouse. So join the fun with hundreds of Bucs fans in the 3rd annual Tampa Bay Bucs cruise. As I said, it set sail March 7th through 10th in 2025 in the beautiful Celebrity Silhouette ship. The 3-night cruise does begin in Fort Lauderdale, and it stops in Key West and Bimini. Last year's cruise, if you saw the video, it's got Yaya Diaby, Rashad White, Luke Gedeke, Kate Otten, Jamel Dean, Dexter Jackson, Warren Sapp, Gene Deckerhoff, and others. More players are expected in 2025, as well as Derek Brooks is already confirmed. So there's going to be player autograph and photo opportunities, raise the red flags, sail away party, VIP parties with the players, special player interviews, water volleyball challenge, Bucs trivia contest, fun games, and more. All you have to do is reserve your cabin now for the Tampa Bay Bucs cruise, where drinks, including alcohol, Wi-Fi, and tips are all included. All you need to do is drop a $200 deposit, and that's refundable until August 16th. But you want to make sure to get your cabin because they're going fast. Go to TampaBayBucsCruise.com. That's TampaBayBucsCruise.com, or give them a call at 1-800-975-7112. You know, Matt, I think one of the things, too, on today's topic is, what's the missing piece? What piece do the Bucs need? And I think return specialist is got to really be considered, right? I mean, this is
special teams.
This team is stacked with specialists, right? Jake Camarda, you're not going to have a bigger cheerleader for him than our own Josh Capo.
Yep.
And I think Camarda has Pro Bowl potential. I really do. Booming leg. I think he's working on the direction and the placement, and then it's just consistency, right? We saw a massive year from Chase McLaughlin last year.
Yep.
Boy, Jason Light has gone from swing and a miss all those years at kicker to Ryan Suckup, and then a follow-up with Chase McLaughlin, who re-signed this offseason as well. The kicking and punting duties are great. They'll find a long snapper. It's going to be Zach Triner, or Deckers. But the return specialists, especially with this new kickoff rule, they got to make the right choice. And I think that Thomas McGahee's got to find the right blockers too, because this is going to be a big time field position changing play. And Tampa Bay's got to get this right.
Oh, no question about it. It's already got the wheels turning for me. Like, how will Bucky Irving look returning? Which this new kickoff rule is quite favorable to running backs. What about Jalen McMillan and his speed? Yeah. Trey Palmer as well, and the quickness he brings. But then those blockers, like you mentioned, obviously Keith would fit perfect for that, but he's injured at the time. Is this because you're going to have to do it to make it, but a guy like Kalen DeLoach, the undrafted free agent, this is his opportunity to make the team, like as a blocker on special teams, or the other way around, trying to make the tackle on kickoffs, which again is a little bit more suited for a linebacker. We've seen in the past special teams hurt the Buccaneers with allowing big returns, but then they've had their moments too. I still go back to that blocked punt in Denver during the Super Bowl winning season by Pat O'Connor that Mike Edwards took. He recovered it at like the 2-yard line, but they were wearing their Pewter jerseys that game. Special teams, again, playing against great teams this year, like the Gauntlet we mentioned. That makes a difference between a win and a loss sometimes. And the Bucs, every team's going to look for every advantage they can possibly get. Whoever wins this return job, I think, can make a major impact for Tampa Bay. I'm very excited for that matchup, but we won't be able to know until like the preseason itself. You can only simulate it so much in training camp. But I don't know, Bucky and Jalen are kind of the two guys I'm thinking.
I'm with you. I'm exactly on board with those picks, Matt. I think you're right. And we did see Tampa Bay commit a lot of mini camp practice time to this. And I think it's going to come down to, can they do it? And it's, when I say do it, it's can they return it, and also can they cover it? Because if you can't cover it well, you watch. Todd Bowles is going to be telling his kicker, Camarda, to drill it through the end zone, start at the 30-yard line, and he'll play defense. That's not ideal, but if they can't defend it, that's what's going to happen. And then, of course, the return game, we'll see what happens. But what I do know is this. If you are in the market to either sell your home or buy your home, well, I've got somebody that I'm going to recommend for you, and that's Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report. It takes a full team effort to win a football game, and it takes a full team effort to win in real estate. Eric Gross and the Eric Gross Group, they've done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market. They've got the experience that you need in any type of situation. Eric, as you probably know, is an avid Pewter Report reader and a Tampa native. His father was stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. He and his team have got the market knowledge, the top-notch communication, and the commitment to excellent service that sets them apart. Their clients are not just transactions, they're lifelong friendships. So don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Let the Eric Gross Group take the pressure off. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group and check out their website, housesinfla.com. That's housesinfla.com. Or give Eric a call. Here's a cell number, 513-907-4271. No matter where you are in your home ownership journey, you're going to feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report.
Well, it was good to start off the week in a right way. Getting back to some Bucs conversation where they can fix some pieces. We're also going to talk about who are the most important Bucs to this team. So a couple fun topics coming up this week. Special guest for Thursday as well. Scott, I don't know if we want to announce it now or leave that as a teaser. All right. On Thursday's show, we are having another Bucs player on. Outside linebacker Marquise Watts is joining the show. He obviously made a splash last season for the Bucs, worked his way to making the team as an undrafted free agent, had a great game against the Tennessee Titans, showed out really well in the preseason too. So we're going to talk about all of his journey last season entering the NFL. We're also going to talk about ranking the most important Buccaneers on tomorrow's show. Obviously, quarterback's important, but if you were going to rank them in order, who is most important to the Bucs? We're going to get into all of that on tomorrow's show. And, of course, another topic we have is which Buc will take the biggest step in 2024, especially with that second-year players coming into their, of course, second year with the team. So a lot of great topics on deck, special guest on Thursday as well. So if you're not already doing so, please follow us on all of our social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff on, X. At Pewter Report, and of course our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Check out all the content we have, from the podcast to the Pewter Pulses, various reaction videos, things from practice and press conferences as well. And leave a comment below once this episode is done. We got one last person from Roll Call, Grant Weigel, watching from Bismarck, North Dakota. Appreciate all of the great content for you guys. Go Bucs. Thank you very much for the kind words. As Kathy also says, great show as always, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. We're going to end it on that note. So for Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.